That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Hunter x Hunter, the third film directed by Shawn Linden, which will be released courtesy of IFC Films, December 18th, 2020.
Do you know Shawn's other films?
No. But his previous film, after I looked him up, sounded quite interesting. It starred Thomas Dekker. It was called The Good Lie, which a few other films have that name, but he played a child of rape that goes to see his biological father.
Oh. That sounds interesting.
The Shawn Linden is a Canadian filmmaker from Winnipeg, I believe. I don't know that it made it clear where it's set, but I assume because it was filmed there, it's set in Canada.
This is like a thriller / horror film, kind of?
Yeah.
All right. It's about a family, mom and dad. So dad is Joseph, who's played by Devon Sawa. The mom is named Anne, played by
Camille Sullivan.
And then they have a little 12-year-old daughter, Renee.
Played by Summer H. Howell.
Okay. So the three of them live off the grid, somewhere in the woods. We find out a little later that it's like federally owned land that they're not supposed to even be on. They don't have like electricity, running water. So they live in like a shitty like cabin. The film opens with Joseph and Renee, the daughter, going out to grab stuff from like their traps because they eat like the animals that they can catch. So when they go to grab their beaver or raccoon, whatever they're about to eat, they see that it has been taken by what they think is a wolf.
A rogue wolf.
So while that's happening, we see that Anne has taken, because how they earn money is by selling the fur, the pelts.
Yep, they're fur trappers.
So we find her at like the general store trying to trade in her pelts for food, and she doesn't have enough. So it's made clear that...
Well, there's a whole discussion that happens with the vendor per se about how certain animals, their pelts are no longer bringing as much money as they used to.
Sure. Okay. So when Joseph returns and tells Anne that a wolf took their food, she's very upset because she's saying that now that the wolf knows that where it can find steady food, it's just going to keep eating our stuff. So you need to kill it. But she also explains that Joseph is like, he's basically like agoraphobic. He just wants to stay in the cabin. He doesn't want to interact with other people. So he's hesitant to go to the police. And he's saying, I don't need to do that. I can just kill it. The next day, Joseph and his daughter Renee go out to kill the wolf. No, she's doing other things with him. It wasn't for him. She's not. He doesn't want her there. I thought he went out specifically to kill the wolf. That's why he brought his guns. Yes, but they make a whole to-do about she's just there to help set traps, and then she will take the trail back home on her own. Sure. So while they're out there, he sees a dismembered, like, human hand. Gets freaked out, tells Renee to go back home. While he's out there, he stumbles upon like a grove of human female corpses. Yeah, several corpses that are clearly the work of like a human because one of them is bound and like leaning against a tree. So there's that. He goes home and he is obviously like very upset, but he doesn't share with his wife what happened. The next day he says, I'm gonna go back out there. I'm probably gonna have to stay the night to catch this wolf. So he does that. He is gone for like 36 hours with Anne not being able to get in contact with him. During that time, we also see that like because they are hungry, doesn't Anne catch something and Renee shows her how to skin it? There's a couple things that happen in this interim. One, but that's important that the daughter teaches her how to skin an animal. She kills a fawn, a baby deer, and there's also a to-do about we don't kill the babies, but out of necessity they have to do that. She also goes to the police. Before that happens, though, they have an encounter with an actual wolf. Oh, that's right. They're out and about and they see like a wolf. She goes to the police to say like, hey, my husband is missing. He's been gone for like overnight and he never doesn't communicate with me for that long. And also there's a wolf. So when she explains where they live, the law enforcement agents are like, and they're not really, like, would you say they're like sheriffs? Or like park rangers?
No, they explain something about their duties. They're just municipal.
They seem very like, they don't seem like real cops.
It's like I think with them they're trying to be almost comic relief, like a Coen Brothers vibe in law enforcement, which doesn't quite work.
It doesn't, but anyway, they explained to her, like, first of all, you tell, like, according to where you say you live, that's federally owned land. You shouldn't even be living out there. Number two, if there's a problem with a wolf, like, the wolf is where it's supposed to be, you're not, so there's that. Lastly, people who go out to like hunt the way your husband has often is gone for that long. So we can't really help you. And if we do go out to your place, we're basically gonna like, you're gonna get in trouble for being where you're not supposed to be. So she leaves frustrated. On the way back, she encounters, well, when she gets home, the daughter is awakened because she thinks she hears her missing dog. And the dog went missing when they encountered the wolf. But we know the dog is dead because prior to that, the mom found the dog and buried it. But so of course the mom is like unnerved when the daughter wakes her up saying, I think I heard the dog outside. So when she goes outside to look, she finds a man who's injured. And that man, his name is Lou, and he's played by Nick Stahl. Mm-hmm. So she brings him in. He has a pretty bad injury to his leg. She tends to him. And then the next day says, like, I need to get you back to like the main road so we can get you help. Mm-hmm. But he's very insistent that he does not want help. She tries to like drag him because she has like a sled that she carries like things on from her car to the house. He refuses. So then we jump to the law enforcement agents.
And they had been doing some things. We get one of them takes this hysterical call from a young white woman about a bear attacking their property. And they're the ones that get ticketed because they don't have the requisite trash receptacles that would keep wildlife out, and so then these bears learn that there's a food source and etc. So that's kind of a subplot of what's going on with the wolf. And
when Anne first went to the law enforcement people, she showed them a ring, like a wedding ring she found in like some animal poop.
There's a lot of digging in poop.
So she obviously is thinking like, well, this can't be like, then this animal ate a person if it has a ring in its poop. So after, when the one cop or whatever they're called is thinking about it, he starts to put two and two together somehow, and then looks at like a missing persons report, and then tells his partner, hey, I'm gonna drive out to that area. I just have a hunch and I'm not gonna be satisfied until I check it out. So when he goes out there, he finds the little shrine of dead bodies. And while he's poking around, he steps into a bear trap or some kind of trap.
Yes, and then falls into another one.
So now he's incapacitated. Mm-hmm. So everything kind of converges when the Lou, Nick Stahl's character, he kind of comes to, like, he's not as, like, he's gotten better because Anne gave him a shot of something in his leg. He basically like assaults her.
Before that happens, she goes out looking for her husband, and they were communicating with walkie-talkie, and out of like desperation she speaks in the walkie-talkie, and she hears the resounding feedback, and she finds the corpse of Devon Sawa, who had been shot.
She finds her husband dead, and then she has like a flashback like that puts two and two together, and she realizes that Lou probably killed her husband. Mm-hmm. So when she runs back, Lou assaults her. He says, give me the keys to the truck. I won't hurt your daughter. She comes to, so then this is when things converge, because then the partner of the cop who's stuck in the bear trap, the next morning has come, mm-hmm. and she has a voicemail from his wife saying like, hey, my man didn't come home last night. So she decides to go to the area he said he was going, and she finds his body. So she calls for backup. So that's happening.
He's still alive.
He's still alive. She calls for backup. They're on their way. And then when Anne comes to, Lou is like wearing headphones, listening to music, like burning a bunch of evidence when she assaults him and incapacitates him.
With an animal trap.
Yes. So the film ends with her dragging Lou to like a shed where they process the animals they catch, like skin them and gut them, whatever. She hangs this fool and skins him alive. Like, a pretty amazing scene. And while that's happening, the law enforcement who are called for backup show up. And she skins him alive, like he's still alive. She walks out of the shed. All the cops have guns pointed at her. And she can't really hear them because she's listening to music. They walk in, and that's when we see his like body hanging, still alive. And then that's the end.
Yeah.
Okay, that was really long. Okay. I was pleasantly surprised considering the cast, which is kind of shady, but the last film I saw, I know Devon Sawa from Final Destination, right?
Oh yeah, he was a teen heartthrob.
And then, that's all I know him from. And then the last thing I saw him in was that John Travolta movie.
The Fanatic that Fred Durst directed.
Which was garbage.
But fun, because it's terrible. But Devon, he was beyond Final Destination. I remember all the girls my age when I was in elementary were in love with Devon.
Sure. My only reference for him is that. And then Nick Stahl, the only reason I know who Nick Stahl is because we saw him at the grocery store the day before he went missing a few years ago.
That was back in
West Hollywood.
2011. Yeah.
So I just thought he was a mess. So thinking that these two people are in a movie, I thought for sure it was going to be some garbage.
Well, I was very curious because it was Nick Stahl's much publicized drug use issues 7 years ago. He hasn't been in a movie since 2014, and all of a sudden he's got all these projects coming out. So I was very curious to see.
Well, he's a really good fit as like this serial killer who's like, out in the woods. Because he looks pretty rough.
He looks ravaged, yes.
And then Devon Sawa doesn't have a lot to do because he dies pretty early on, like within the first like
goes missing
like within the first like 20 minutes. But the lady who played Anne,
Camille Sullivan.
I thought she did an excellent job.
She did do a good job, but there were some problems in the script, I think, with the character development that we can talk about. And also, for somebody they're so off the grid that she has to go to the river to get water. She looks pretty good, hair and makeup wise, for a woman.
Well, her hair's colored, her brows are shaped, so I don't know how she's doing that.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I feel like, because Devon Sawa looks rugged, and I think that she could have looked a little more rugged.
And the daughter looks pretty like
gender neutral almost.
Well, yeah, because someone says your son, but it's your daughter. Anyway, I was pleasantly surprised. The film starts out pretty strong, and it ends like very unexpectedly.
Yeah.
I would say the middle third drags on.
It does drag a bit, but even as you were explaining the narrative, there are a lot of things that happen. There are a lot of moments that happened. It's just that none of them really happen with any kind of real energy, except for that confrontation Anne and the daughter have with the wolf, where she's screaming at it and scares it away. And it's really here where the score, which is a really good score from Kevin Cronin, where the heavy lifting of that becomes very obvious.
Okay, I'm going to go down my notes. So starting with the story, they live off the grid in the middle of these woods. They like live off of their own like hunting. So I was a little confused when the mom in particular is like panicking about not having food, particularly for the winter, because she doesn't appear to not know that there are resources available to her. Like my first note is like, don't they have an EBT card? Like, I mean, I'm assuming they're in the US, but even if they're in Canada, like,
I thought they were in Canada.
Don't they have access to food if they need help? So I thought that was weird. And then my thought is like, well, maybe they're afraid to go ask for help because they're off the grid. But the wife doesn't know they're not supposed to be where they are. And she wasn't so scared that she didn't go to the cops to tell them about the wolf and her husband.
Well, it's almost Devon Sawa, who's kind of playing a character that's like if Grizzly Man had a human family. It seems as he was keeping it secret that he's tracking a human serial killer, not an actual wolf, it might have been a subplot that got excised for running time, the fact about them living on federal land, because she brings him a pamphlet for some real estate agent saying like, we need to sell what we own so we can take Renee to a proper school and blah,
That's
blah,
right. Well, and Anne, because Anne tells the cops like, no, we are supposed to be there. My husband's family has had this for like 3 generations, and she does bring that pamphlet, so she must be under the impression they own that land.
So I wonder if something just had to get cut out.
Yeah, that...
But then it leaves these room for questions.
Because she doesn't seem like someone who has lived in the woods for so many years. Her reaction to like a lot of things just seems like she's a city girl who went camping and things went awry.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's clear she's the business side of their operations, like dealing with the people and selling the goods. But yeah, it just, and she makes some comment about people don't live like this anymore. It's like, well, how long exactly have you been living like this?
Yeah, because I'm assuming she's only, well, first of all, how did Joseph meet her? And then I thought, well, she's had to have lived there as long as they've had their daughter.
Yeah.
Which would be like 12 years, because he says she's about to turn 13. When we see the wolf, it's a little crunchy. It's not as crunchy as the lion in Rogue, but it's a little crunchy. I don't know that I needed to see the wolf.
Or that there had to be such a confrontation.
Sure.
I think that we get enough from her finding a ring in what we think is wolf poop. Has the same sense of menace that there's this wolf eating humans out there.
Yep. Also, getting back to Anne, her reaction to the fact that there is a wolf out there just made me think like, but you live in the middle of the woods. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think is out there? Mm-hmm. I thought that was weird. Like, I feel like as someone who doesn't go hunting or camping or, like, I don't understand how you could live like that and be so surprised that there are creatures out there. Well,
and especially we have that juxtaposed moment where she's bringing the water back from the stream and the daughter's on the way back from her father telling her to go home. And they're both all of a sudden in a panic at the thought that there's something out there about to get them.
Yes, because I'm thinking like, we live in the city, and every time I go take the trash out at night, I'm convinced a creature is going to jump and attack me. Because I saw a possum once. So I just think it's weird that they would be so freaked out. But anyway.
Sure.
Getting back to the music, I think for the bulk of the film, the music is more intriguing than what's happening on screen.
Sure.
Like, it's doing a lot. It's good, but it's doing more than what's happening on the screen.
Yeah, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Mm-hmm.
The crunchy acting I'm referring to is the two law enforcement agents, particularly the female one, because like you mentioned, I feel like they were trying to do like a little shtick. Well, and she did say a couple things that were funny, but it seemed out of place.
They were trying to break up the tone, I think.
When that poor policeman steps in those traps, I felt so bad for him. He was just trying to do his job. He was going above and beyond, because I'm sure he makes like very little money.
I thought it was interesting because I went from kind of having lost interest in what's happening to these people to being very intensely engaged at the end of it.
Well, the end reminded me of that film Martyrs, when she skins.
Oh, of course, yeah.
She gets skinned or she skins someone?
That's about all those people getting skinned. Alive.
Martyrs? Mm-hmm. No, but the final scene of the film, someone gets skinned.
Yes.
Is it the lady or does she skin someone?
I think it's the lady.
Either way, it reminded me of that. Like, it was that sort of jarring.
I thought Mr. Linden was very influenced by 70s American horror. The narrative is basically a rehash of Last House on the Left, where those rapists end up in the house of the parents of the girl they raped, and the parents seek vengeance. But also the very effective finale set to a track called Hypnotized Narcissist by Christian Cindy Sondergaard, I thought was very kind of stunning. As Anne is wearing this covered in blood, and we get flashes to Nick Stahl's hanging skinless body, it reminded me, it might not have the weight of this, but it reminded me of kind of the final scenes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, with Leatherface spinning in the air and the girl laughing crazily at the end of in the bed of that pickup truck driving away.
Yeah, the ending was very effective.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Or there's another film Robin Pront directed with Nicholas Coster-Waldau earlier this year called The Silencing, about that man that lives on the wilderness reservation. Just like a clutch of these wilderness films and the menace within them, I think is interesting.
What would you give this film?
I think 3 out of 5 is fair. The beginning and ending, I think, make up for kind of sometimes inert middle, but yeah, 3 out of 5.
I would give it 3 out of 5. It's worth a watch.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
All right, bye.
Bye.